Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Hi, and welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we radiate Awakening with Lynn McKenzie, author of Bark, Neigh, Meow, Awaken to the Transformative Wisdom of Your Companion Animal to Activate Your Soul's Highest Calling. Something near and dear to my heart. Welcome, Lynn.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
I understand that you're in Arizona where it's really hot.
Yes, hot and dry and burning up at the moment, sadly. But hopefully they do have some rain in the forecast for tomorrow. So I'm praying it's rain and not just thunder, not just lightning without the rain, because that's how so many of the fires start.
Oh, right. Well, we will pray for rain. I think that would be wonderful for you. So
Yes.
You are an animal communicator, an animal intuitive. My goodness. How long have you been doing that work?
I started this in the early 90s, so over 30 years now, and it's just kind of blossomed and changed and grown to what it is today. And now I mostly focus on teaching. I have students all over the world, and that's sort of what I've been doing.
And so you teach animal intuition.
Yeah, I have something called the Animal Energy Certification Training Program, and it's a combination of like animal intuition and a healing modality.
Wonderful. The healing modality, is it akin to Reiki?
No, nothing like Reiki at all. It's really it's a kinesiology system, and there was a lot of them many years ago of different healing systems that were kinesiology based. So it's basically like asking for the higher self permission of a being. It works for humans as well. And then working through a system, but it's all guided by that being's higher self. So, and there's a whole protocol that I teach. That it's my system that I put together from a variety of everything I'd learned over the years.
Right. Oh, wow. That sounds exciting. And
yeah.
So how did you even get started in animal intuition, animal communication? Did you know you had this gift?
It's kind of a funny story. You know, I was born loving animals. I always have, had this huge affinity for animals. And I was born into a family where we didn't even have any animals for the longest time. And I begged for them. And, initially they let me get little things like turtles, fish, a hamster. My sister had a budgie. And then eventually, they finally let us get a dog. But so I was born, having an affinity for it for sure. And I talk about this a little bit in my book because I feel like I was being groomed for what I was to do later. But then I went into the real world and went to college and got a job. And then I went into real estate, and I had a successful real estate career for like 18 years. But I just felt like there was, although I enjoyed it, I felt like there was something more that I was here to do. So from there, I ended up exploring different careers, and I settled on doing training as a spiritual psychotherapist, which I went through about 3 years of training for that. And in that, I got so jazzed and excited about the energetic side of things, which I learned a lot about in there. And then I kept taking every training I could possibly find, any training known to man. This is back in the early 90s. I did a little bit of training in the late 80s. So through all that, I ended up, planning to work with people. And I was trying to get my practice working with people while I was still doing real estate. But then I heard about this other training, animal communication, which I hadn't even really been aware of at the time. And I took it. And I mean, my career just went like took off. Everybody who I was working with on the human side of things wanted me to work with their animals. The Toronto Star, which is a huge newspaper, called me up and featured an article on me, and just things just took off. I was on media, radio, TV, all over the place. And, I guess the rest is history.
So when you first started using the animal intuition, were you kind of surprised at what was coming up?
I can't, in a way it felt normal to me, but here's the thing. When I went to my first training program, which was outside of the city, I drove maybe 4 hours away for a weekend away to do this training. And, I met this horse, I met the energy of this horse. He wasn't physically at the training, although the training was at a horse farm. I met this horse through a photograph because, believe it or not, I had forgotten the picture of my dog, Jigs, that was like my, animal companion. He was like the animal love of my life. And I forgot to bring his photograph. And this was before, cell phones with cameras and all that kind of thing. So, of course, I didn't have a photo on me. And we were supposed to trade our photos with someone in the class and read each other's animals. And I didn't have my photos. So the teacher gave me a stack of photos and I went through them and I went through about 90 photos before I got to this one horse that was like jumping off the page. And when I tuned into him, it was like, and I write about this story too, because I now call him an ascended master of the equine realm. It was like, it was like the biggest breakthrough. It was like a fireworks or something when I tuned in with him, and he let me know that he was a really important guide for me and that I could channel him at any time. And I felt permanently altered. Like I drove home 4 hours and I don't even feel like my tires touched the ground.
Oh my goodness.
And he's still a part of all my trainings. He crossed over back in 2002, sadly, but and I got to meet him in the flesh after I met him spiritually. Oh. And he did cross over in 2002, but he's still, he's still a part of all my trainings and is a guide for my students.
Oh, wow. So he helps teach your students how to connect with the animal realm.
Yeah, he, along with Jigs, my golden retriever, who was the dog that I was saying I forgot to bring the picture of Jigs. Yeah.
Our animal companions really do want to help us in so many ways, don't they? Oh my
Yes,
goodness.
They do. And, for those of us that love them, I truly feel they are our paths to our greatest awakening, to our spiritual development, to our personal growth, to all of that. I'm not saying it's the only way in, but it's a huge way for animal lovers to awaken that way.
Oh, it is, right. When we can connect with something outside of our own being and connect with them and welcome their essence into ours and truly understand and connect with them on that type of level. I truly agree. There's some astonishing statistic about people in prisons that there's some high percentage of people in prison who had never had animals growing up. I don't doubt that at all. We need to learn to connect with love, care for, have empathy for something smaller than us.
They've brought some like breaking of wild mustangs into prisons as well. I saw a movie on that was pretty amazing. And what it did for those people who might have gone out and reoffended again, it seemed to like completely connect to them on a heart level and really just change them around so much, because as they say, the outside of a horse is good for the inside of a soul. There's just such a different shift in the inmates when they've had this experience, and they get to have something positive and affect another animal that's maybe scared or not trusting humans, etc. Just like how the horse is kind of a metaphor for who they are as well.
Oh, I love that. In my area here in the Midwest, there's a program for inmates to train dogs too
Oh, great.
in the foster system. And so they take in these dogs and, they're trained in order to train the dogs and work with socializing them and getting them ready to be adopted by a family. It's a wonderful program.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So the healing portion of it, the healing, I'm very interested in that. So what type of things do you work with the animals on healing, or actually the I guess their owners, the people?
Yeah, I mean, clearly the people are the ones who schedule the appointments, but they're about the animals. But it's so much of the time they're about the people as much as the animals too, as I'm sure you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
So my practice spans such a huge number of years, so it's kind of transformed and evolved over time. But anything really, animal communication and the healing can't. And I find they go really well together. I mean, I always say to people, what's the point in communicating with them if you can't do anything, if you can't alter the issues that they have, so to speak. So, anything from physical ailments, obviously it's not a replacement for veterinary care, but it can be an amazing supportive. I've worked with many people and their vets. I've worked with many veterinarians over the years. Behavioral situations, training things, if people are showing animals like dogs or horses or that kind of thing, most of those people care very deeply about their animals and their animals' well-being. Some of these animals are worth, over $1 million. Some of the horses that are being shown, these people care very, very deeply about their animals. Contrary to what, even some people on the racetrack, and I know that's a kind of an unsavory place, but there are people who have horses on the racetrack who love them and care for them and really want to make sure that their animals are happy as a racehorse. I mean, because some animal, just like us, if someone said you have to be a ballerina, all of a sudden, if it's not in your wheelhouse, you might hate it. But so any kind of behavioral issue, training issue, just health and well-being, and then things like, the death and dying process, crossing over. Somehow I did a lot of medical intuition things, closer to the beginning. I tended to, my specialty seemed to evolve as helping people through the death and dying process and connecting with them in the afterlife, and then helping them, helping the human, connect with them and know that the love that we share with another being doesn't end with the ending of the physical, and learning really about the cycle of life and death and rebirth, and having a way to maybe understand it a little bit better, even as far as humans go. And, many times when I'm connecting with an animal on the other side, there'll be humans around them, and I'll be bringing in humans through that. So, but going back to the healing side, rescue situations, like a lot of animals have just, they're so messed up just because of what humans have done to them or how they've been neglected or whatever. So that kind of thing is very helpful. A lot of people who are riding their horses, they want a deeper relationship with that horse than just the regular kind of relationship that most horse and rider might have, if there's such a thing as that. So it runs the full gamut. I mean, if it's an issue, it can be dealt with through this healing system and that kind of thing.
How did you discover that was in your wheelhouse?
It was really, I had taken so much training. Like I had literally learned every single thing I could learn. I was taking training in color therapy and essential oils and flower essences and educational kinesiology and all kinds of different modalities. The biggest one I learned was something called the one that had probably the most influence on my work is body alignment technique and vortex alignment. Those I took in the early 90s, and they were way ahead of their time, I guess, I would say, for mainstream, that's for sure. And I took all these modalities, and then once I took the animal communication training and realized that I could start to apply all these modalities for humans to animals, it just was like divine intervention. I was guided. My business took off when I went more in that direction, even though I'd been trying to make it work just to work strictly with people. And it just kind of, everything in my life made sense after that. All of the, when I was younger, I used to ride horses as a young teen. And I would ride 2 horses a day, and I would ride out in the trails, and I jumped horses and showed horses and the whole bit. And I really feel like my time with horses really helped me to open to the psychic, intuitive side of things, because I believe horses teach us that horses are that, not that dogs and cats aren't, but horses have their own way of communicating through a herd that is a little bit different than dogs and cats. And so it's kind of like, and I say this I think I say this in chapter 1 about my first horse, Jasmine. And it's like I was being groomed. I realize now, looking back, that I was being groomed all along for this, even though I didn't even know that this career existed back then.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes the career finds you. Sometimes the modality finds you. And, what type of results do you find with the animals when you work with them?
You know what? I find that animals don't have the stories attached to their energetic imbalances. So I find that, especially when I first started working with animals, I would find that something that might take a human, 3 1-hour sessions, an animal could do in 10 minutes, because we have all of the same blockages and balances and non-beneficial energies in our energy fields. But we tend to sometimes not want to let go of them, even if we think we do, because there's some payoff to having that story. And if that's gone, the story's gone with it. And then who are we and what do we have? Animals don't have that at all. So they clear and release. They don't hold grudges. You know what I mean? They don't want to get revenge. They don't have any of that sort of thing. Like a lot of people, if they're hurt, they don't want to forgive the other being. Animals are like in full surrender. They're forgiving no matter what, anything whatever happens to an animal, that you can always bring them back around pretty much. So I've had animals that, that people came to me and their veterinarians had told them they had a incurable disease, different ones. And they have actually gone back with their animal like a couple of years later, and the vets, almost fell off his chair because he couldn't believe that the cat was still alive, or, he's like, this is impossible kind of thing. So I've had some what I would call true miracles. And I want to just say for all the listeners that I truly believe I'm the conduit for this. I've just learned how to be the conduit for this. I don't credit the healing to me. I credit it to coming in from source energy and me just learning how to channel it and be the conduit for it. But I've had animals that were like, really, really terrified and really, come from abusive situations, turn into completely happy love bugs, for their people. I've had cats that were urinating inappropriately stop on a dime, which is a pretty nasty problem to have and a pretty tough one to figure out. I don't guarantee I can. I once had everyone in Toronto calling me about that, because everyone who had a cat that was urinating inappropriately, because it was written in an article. But I had a dog that was 2 years old that I write about in my book a little bit. I just touch on it briefly, but this dog had stopped eating. And the dogs, people had a number of dogs, so they fed them in their crates because they had quite a few dogs. They lived on a farm, and they loved their dogs. They did agility and fly ball and that kind of thing with their dogs, and they ran a boarding kennel for people, and really excellent people. And their one dog wasn't eating, yet she was guarding the food in her crate so none of the other dogs would get it. And being 2, she had gone to the vet, had some tests, and there was a couple of numbers on her blood work that were a little bit out, but nothing conclusive. So then she was referred to the specialist at a teaching hospital, a university teaching hospital. And they did a bunch of tests. And finally, she said to them, I'm calling my animal intuitive. And they kind of rolled their eyes, being specialists, and said, good luck with that one, I'm sure, something to that effect. And, I talked to the dog. Her name was Ocean. This is quite a few years ago. Mm-hmm. And the first thing out of Ocean's mouth is, it's my duodenum. And I know some people say it differently than that, but that's how she said it to me. And that's how I understood it. Mm-hmm. And I told her person right away, she kept saying it. And I was like, that's really specific. Like, usually they'll go, it's my liver or my digestive system, not something that's one in, a million parts of the body. And I said, does this make sense to you? To her person, because her person was a nurse. And she goes, it makes perfect sense, because the stomach empties out right at the duodenum. And that's where, that could be why she's not eating. So she went back armed with this information. And, when they did an endoscopy, she had bacteria in that exact area. That is a bacteria that only humans get.
Oh my God.
And she had to go on, but as soon as they found it, I'm not saying they wouldn't have found it, because they're specialists. They would have done an endoscopy eventually. But she was adamant about it. And it's amazing that she was able to tell me something that specific out of the number of parts in a body, that she could relay that. And it was instantaneous, and it was in a very meek, mild voice. And, she went on to, she had to go on a diet of kangaroo, if you can believe it.
I've heard of that, yeah.
And special medicine. And she went on to live a healthy, happy life. And she was only 2 when this started, And if nothing had been done, she literally would have died. She would have starved to death, because she was going down to nothing, wasting away.
Oh, poor baby.
Yeah. So I've seen so many things. Like, people will say, you won't believe it, my horse, did this or did that, or didn't do this anymore, that they want, it's just like, there have been some real miracles. That's for sure.
That's amazing. What strikes me is how this dog was able to get a bacteria known to humans.
Yeah, I don't know. It's probably, I told a vet once, I was talking to a vet about it, and they said, and they named I did a podcast actually with a veterinarian who has, I forget her name right now off the top of my head, but she has this really cool movement that she's promoting with, humans and animals and oneness and spirituality. And when I told her, she named the bacteria just like that, because she's a veterinarian. I didn't hold that information in my head, because it wasn't necessary.
Right. You got lots of information in there.
Yeah.
But that raises a question. Our animals are so tuned into us, and we to them. Do you find some problems that are, I don't know, maybe our animals pick up from us?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. I always tell all my students and all my clients that our animals are like sponges, and they absorb whatever's going on with us. And, I've had people call me for sessions, and their animals were really acting out. And then they'll go, well, we are getting a divorce, but we haven't told them yet. And I'm like, you don't have to tell them. They know exactly what's going on. It's not like you can pull the wool over an animal's eyes. So, they are sponges for us. They absorb what we are absorbing. If we're afraid, they're picking up on that. If we're feeling anxious, it makes them fearful. And, if there's so many parts to how what we do impacts the animals, and even our own health, our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health, even if everything, but even besides our physical situation, they work on it. Like, if we've got a thyroid condition, our animals may develop one, or they may try to work on that,
Right.
So I have exercises that I teach people to do with their animals to help them try to alleviate, to clear out. I call it like squeezing the sponge, like if you're wiping up enough water with your sponge, eventually you're going to have to squeeze it out so it can absorb more. And our animals take that role seriously with us, but we need to clean the slate on a regular basis, or else it builds up and it starts to work its way into the physical level and create some kind of an imbalance there. So it works its way through the like it starts at the outside of the energy field and works its way through the layers, and the physical is the last. So if we can clear it out on a regular basis, we can make their lives a lot more enjoyable.
Oh, that's wonderful. Right. I was working with a client yesterday whose dog was having seizures. And come to find out that this client is in grad school and medical school at the same time and taking all of these intense tests. And there's another dog in the home that was that's being messing indiscriminately. And she's got a lot on her shoulders. No wonder this little dog is having seizures.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think our animals will carry things for us and take on some of the stuff that we're putting out there. And so you
100%.
teach them, yeah, 100%, right? So you teach techniques to help people help themselves and their animals.
Yes.
Yes. And are these are techniques that you've developed, some exercises you've developed?
Yeah, I have a whole healing system, and it's fairly in depth and involved, and it works on so many levels. Like I always say that although you're coming into the training, to learn how to be an animal intuitive, an animal communicator, and an animal healer, you're kind of coming in for personal growth, spiritual development, and changing your life around in such a way that you'll never be the same person when you come out the other side. And in doing, there's a whole self-healing component to the training, as well as because you have to be somewhat healed, or mostly healed preferably, to be able to help others in their situation. You have to be clear and not attached to outcomes and all of that to be the best healer you can be. There needs to be, like, the vessel needs to be clear for that information to come through, because if it's filtered through all kinds of filters, it can kind of get a little sideways.
Support for the Radiate Wellness Podcast is made possible in part by listeners like you. Would you like to support this podcast? Visit radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast for more information.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure you see remarkable results with people that you work with.
Yeah, my students especially.
Oh my goodness. So how long is the program that you offer?
So it doesn't actually have a specific timeline, but the way it's set up is you can do it probably in as little as 5 months, but hardly anybody does. It depends on where you're at when you come into the program. Most people, and you can stay in the program for a full 2 years, and that's with live coaching and Q&A calls twice a month, a forum where people have real amazing support and access to one another, and myself, so that they can get guidance and support through that process, because it is such an in-depth transformation in people that I don't like to rush people through it if they need the time. And many times people do. I have people coming in, like advanced healers coming in, and they may be more familiar with a lot of the stuff. But I've also had people come in who were brand new to this. I've had one woman came in and she had never even heard of chakras before, which, it's hard to believe almost. Wow. And by the time she left the program, she was channeling this higher spiritual information through for her clients, which was quite remarkable.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, yeah. I love that. So you're really spreading this light and love and this information, this healing throughout the world. And I just think that's It's remarkable. I'm so glad that I found out about you. Do you have any great stories you can share? Some interesting stories from your book?
Yeah, so let me think of, well, okay, I'll share one that I think is kind of interesting. And I mean, there's the stories. Let me just say one thing. The book is broken down into 5 sections, and it's broken down into animal companion as partner, healer, guide,
Catalyst.
catalyst, bridge. It's so funny. I'm drawing a blank, which is really bizarre. Yeah, I missed one. Partner, teacher. I missed teacher, and that's what threw me off. Partner, teacher, guide, healer, catalyst, and bridge. It's broken into 6 sections. And so each section sort of is designed to show how our animal companions of all sorts. It doesn't focus on dogs and horses just. It's about all kinds of different animals. And so there'll be very varied stories and situations in the book. But one that comes to mind that might be interesting to people is, I believe that the animals are the keepers of our soul's divine blueprint, or the highest, manifestation of our soul here on this physical plane. So the highest, so I believe they have access to the blueprint that really allows us to be the best selves that we can be, which is, and it's very different for each of us because we're all so much like snowflakes. We come in very differently. None of us are the same when we come in. And then we have all of these different, environments, educations, upbringings, belief systems, and all of this stuff. And it's society, the part of society that we are in. So we all change so much and like no one's experience is the same in this life. So we come in very different, and then we have very different experiences. So we're all so varied. And I had a client, and I write about her in this book. I changed the name in some of the stories, and in her case I did, but she was unfulfilled. She was at a place in her life where she was working, for somebody else. She was single. She had her bunny, and in the book it's Lulu Bell. And she wanted to do something different. And she started having sessions through me. And it is a true story. She started having sessions through me to connect in further with the rabbit and see what guidance the rabbit had for her. And the rabbit really encouraged her to make a fairly drastic move, and to leave her paid employment and branch out on her own and open up a gift shop. And, she wanted a different kind of lifestyle. And the rabbit was very in tune with the kind of lifestyle she wanted and really guided her. And she did make that shift and move to that, new place and get her store, her gift shop. And, the rabbit came to work with her every day and was, in the store and got to know everybody. And I mean, her life was completely transformed. And she could have just kept going along with the status quo, but she wasn't happy or fulfilled. So she was able to get guidance, and she would call often and, have me tune in and see if, what was next, or certain decisions coming along, and what she should do about them, and what her rabbit thoughts. And the rabbit was very cooperative and very much, allowed her to move into the next highest vision of herself and what she was here to do. That's not to say she might not have moved into something else later on, because we morph and change and grow all the time. But so that is one that I think is, rather surprising.
Right. Who would think that your, I hesitate to say pet, but your companion animal, rabbit, would be your guide?
Yeah. I mean, I've had so many people over the years who have made a decision to connect with their animals once they've crossed over. I had one client for many, many years who would all, maybe have 3 sessions or 4 sessions a year, always to tune in with the spirit of his dog that had crossed over. And to see what guidance, it's like having a reading, but it would be coming from the soul. We'd bring that being forth and connect that way. And it was like, and I mean, this guy was high-end business. I won't say his business just because it's a kind of a rare business. So I don't want to give his name away. He's not in the book, but I've had so many, so many different scenarios. I've had veterinarians. One veterinarian, they had show dogs, and one of their dogs was having an issue in the ring about being scared of something. I can't remember exactly what it was now because it's a while back, but he told his wife to call me and have a session with me. And, he was a real mainstream vet, but he had heard about me through people. And they had a session with me. I've had many people who have either racehorses or show dogs who really love them to bits. They weren't just thinking of them as money-making commodities or anything like that. And I've had them, a horse that in training always ran fast enough to win any race, like ran faster than all the horses. But at the race, all that race day hoopla and stuff really he used up all his energy right in the starting gate before they even opened it. And, after talking to him and giving them some exercises and even some instructions from the horse for the jockey, he won the race by 2.5 lengths, and he was able to run to his full potential. They knew he could run that fast because he did every day. He just didn't do it on a regular basis. So that kind of thing, or dogs winning their championship, sometimes they need a few more points and there's some issues with them. So all that kind of stuff has been very regular, throughout time. And, it's kind of neat to see.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. From the work that I do with animals, humans often say, what do they want? What do they want me to know? What do they want me to know? So what do you find that the animals just want you to know?
They want us to kind of relax and chill out a little bit more. That's one of the things. They really want us to connect in with just with peace and love and surrender and try to be a little bit more like them, be grounded, just kind of live in the present moment is one of the biggest, because as humans, we're half the human race is either in the past or worrying about the future. It's like come into the now kind of thing, and really I believe to really understand the huge thing that I find is that to understand that the love that we share with any being on this physical plane does not end with the ending of the physical.
Right.
We still can connect with those beings. It's, so many times when people's animals have crossed over, they'll say, I miss her so much. Does she miss me? And I'm like, she doesn't miss you because she's still with you. You know what I mean? And you will be able to be with her. It's in a different way than when they're on the physical plane, but you will be able to have that connection if you want it enough and allow yourself and give yourself the time and space to do it. But so there's a lot of messages there, but they're all about kind of relaxing into who we are as spiritual beings and being present.
Right.
And listening. Listening is like the big one.
Listening is the big one. And so what do you wish that humans would listen to about their pets?
I wish they would just take a breath and spend some time with them and really connect with them on a spiritual level and just, see what it is they have to share. Each one is different, and no matter what, just, being more connected to them, connecting at a level that most humans aren't, thinking about or aware of or giving themselves the time, but giving themselves the time to just do that and connect.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's beautiful. We can all be more present, certainly, and be more present with our animals.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at your website a bit earlier, which is lynnmckenzie.com. You've got a lot of information out there. You've got, of course, your email list, all of the different programs, animal communication and healing, psychic development, clairvoyance mastery, a chakra program. You do so much more than just animal communication, although animal communication is huge, but so much training. This is wonderful.
Yeah, I even have more like home study courses under the shop tab. There's a bunch there on afterlife and crystal healing and that kind of thing.
Oh my goodness, a blog, everything, and so much going on. And you've certainly been doing this for such a long time. So your book has just launched, hasn't it?
Yes, came out on May 8th. So just, a month ago.
Just a month ago. And so I'm sure you're very busy promoting the book. What all are you working on in promoting the book?
Well, I've been doing a lot of interviews. I do a lot. I've been writing posts for blogs, Aspire magazine, different places like that. I've been doing. I have a Facebook page which is actually Animal Alchemy, and I put a lot on there. I have a lot of followers there. I have a lot of followers everywhere because I've been doing this for so long, and I'm so interested in getting the word out there to everybody about this. So, everything I can do. I would have gone on a book tour, but with the whole COVID situation and even borders, I'm from Canada, even though I live in the US, but the border's not like freely open right now.
I thought I detected a Canadian accent.
Yeah, this isn't an Arizona accent. Yes. I don't know what that is, though, because people here are from everywhere. But yeah, so, I would have gone on a book tour. There was just something called the International New Age Trade Show. And instead of going live to speak there, I gave my publisher a video and they, put the video there for people to see because it was going to be much more scaled down than normal.
Right. You're with Llewellyn, which is one of the main publishers of New Age
Yes.
information, New Age books and materials. That's wonderful. I want to congratulate you on your book. I think that's wonderful.
Thank you. I have the
yes,
cover here. I love the cover. I was happy with how it came out.
you got you got the horses and birds and dogs in there.
Yeah, it came out really quite nice. I think they did a fabulous job of the cover and art and everything.
Yeah, Llewellyn does a wonderful job of publishing and promoting and just drawing the right people with the right artists and producers of books and materials. Just top notch.
I'm already on the. I may be writing another book. They're interested in it, and I kind of needed a little bit of time before I committed to that because I've got a full-time job with lots of people working for me as it is, in my other business, so I'll probably do it, but but I'm giving myself a little bit of time off.
Good for you. Writing. Right. Writing a book is a major, major undertaking.
You know what? I had no idea. Like I knew it was a lot of work, but if I had a guest for my first book, it was probably about 20 times what I thought it would be. But that's because of like some of that was a learning process for myself too. Mm-hmm. Like I would think the chapter was done and then it would change like 20 more times, I have like final one, final two, final 25, each chapter in my computer. It's like things just kept morphing and morphing. And, a book is kind of like a living entity. Like,
it is.
Even though you have a book proposal and you have an entire plan of how it's going to be and you know what stories are going where, threads start to flow through the book and different things happen. Like I ended up adding a whole new chapter, like a whole fourth chapter. Each section has 3 chapters.
Right.
And at the very end, I realized there's got to be another chapter here. And it's my favorite chapter. It's called A Winged Ambassador. And it's about the red-tailed hawk, and it's about this thread that runs through the whole book. And it's the perfect, final chapter in the book, but I didn't even have that planned. And I was happy the publisher let me put it in because, when you give them a book proposal, I think they're kind of want you to stick to it as much as possible. They were open-minded. It made the book, in my opinion.
Well, I think they also, ask you to do some revisions and say,
yes,
we might need something else here. So I think they understand that a book is a living, breathing, evolving type of thing. When I used to teach college English, I would tell my students that, well, you're turning in the paper now. It's only done because you're turning it in. It'll never be done. You'll pull it out and you'll realize that, oh, this is all crap. I need to rewrite this or that, but it's only done because you're turning it in.
Yeah, you can change. I reread my book when it came, just because my mother, who's 91, who listened to lots of my stories, she's like, "Are you going to read it? You should read it." And I said, "I've read it like 5,000 times. I probably could recite it off by heart, And then I thought, you know what? I should read it in book form. And I read it, and I was like, I wished I'd changed that. I wished and I mean, people are reading it going, "Oh, we love it. It's perfect," whatever, and meanwhile I'm like, "Oh, I would have read that differently now." But,
thinking, why read it? You'll just go back and say, "Oh my gosh, this needs to be redone."
But we evolve. Like I'm a different person now than I was 12 months ago, and we're constantly changing and evolving ourselves as, so I'm very happy with how it came out, despite the fact that I might have changed a few things. That could go on forever.
It could go on forever, tweaking.
And that's a sickness in itself.
Well, then that's how you have the 2nd edition and the 3rd edition and the 4th edition.
Yeah.
And you are working on another book, probably to come out after a while.
Yeah. I haven't given a date yet, but I am. I have probably 4 or 5 books. I have at least 5 books in me, whether I get them all out in the remainder of my life. I've developed so many programs over the years and audio things, and I did video and all that. And I really put my focus into developing my programs because it's a lot more lucrative, number one. Mm. And, a book is very time consuming, and it's an expensive undertaking to go through, even if your publisher's paying for it, the amount of time and effort and work you have to put into it. But I really feel like it's time for me to start getting my books out, because not everyone's my books will, live forever. My programs won't. They're on my, they're in my sort of website and in my business, but that won't be going on for the rest of my life, I don't think, or, certainly won't be going on after my life.
Right, because you've got a lot of teaching and training going on at lynnmckenzie.com. Well, Lynn, is there anything that you feel like we haven't touched on? Anything that you think is important to mention?
The only thing I'd like to say is that I do have a free training at lynnmckenzie.com. If you look at the tabs across the top, over on the far right-hand side, there's a pink tab. It's the only one that's pink, and it says free training. And there is a free training there. It's a beautifully designed ebook, and also an invitation to a free 90-minute webinar. So I just wanted to let people know about that if they want to, if they're interested in this and want to get a taste of what it's all about. And I really hope that, like, my book is designed in such a way that even if you're not wanting to be an animal intuitive yourself, even if you're not wanting to be an animal healer yourself, really the book is designed so that it should be a really interesting and awakening read for you either way. It's not just designed specifically for that person. There are exercises you can follow in it at the end of each chapter, but you don't have to. So it's like heartwarming stories. A lot of people said they laughed and they cried and they felt like just awakened by reading it. So it's not, you don't have to be that person, but it's also really good for those people too.
Right, absolutely. I think we all like to hear stories of connecting with animals and how other people perceive that, and even stories of animals after death and how, they go on. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Anybody who's ever loved an animal or currently loves animals will really benefit by reading this book and be awakened and opened to things that they probably hadn't thought of before.
Right. I think so too. All right. And the book is, the title of the book again?
It's Bark. Oh yeah, you go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's Bark, Neigh, Meow, Awaken to the Transformative Wisdom of Your Companion Animal to Activate Your Soul's Highest Calling.
Right. Absolutely. And we truly do awaken to all of that. It's a beautiful book, and it's been wonderful speaking with you today, Lynn. I really appreciate your time.
Yes, it's been wonderful speaking to you, with you, Christy, and thanks so much for taking the time to talk about my book on your podcast.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.